Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy Siskind, the author of Playing Solo Jazz Piano, of Solo Standards for Piano. Very similar sounding title. And of the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series, has 3 parts. Go grab them, They're not going to be around forever. I'm going to pull them from the market at some point, and you're going to miss out. I'm not planning on pulling them from the market, just a thing to say. Got to create pressure, sales tactics. Okay, so today I want to talk about shout chorus voicings, or they're sometimes called block chords. I think people use those terms kind of interchangeably. If you haven't been following my Every Saturday series, I've been basically going on a journey of jazz piano voicings, covering a different kind of standard voicing every Saturday. And in this case, it's actually going to be really beneficial to go in order because the left-hand component of this voicing is going to be the voicing that we covered last week. So I'm going to go over it quickly, but if you want it more in depth, then go listen to installment number 5. This is like a serial series. So shout chorus voicings are, big two-handed voicings. And I always think about these as an imitation of a big band. It's like maybe you could think of the left hand as being the trombones and the right hand as being the trumpets, something like that. You hear this in all kinds of pianists, particularly those who are interested in big bands. Like I always talk about, I think one of the things that Errol Garner and Oscar Peterson, for instance, is doing in their playing is they're imitating the sound of a big band. And you know that Oscar Peterson loves Count Basie. He puts out the album Night Train, which is like all Duke Ellington tunes, and plays them with these big two-handed voicings. So how do we form these voicings? So they're not a monolith. There's different ways to do it, but in general, this is a combination of a 4-note type A-B voicing in the left hand plus octave melody in the higher register. I'm just going to write high in the right hand. Now, the thing that's really variable to me is that this could be filled in with different amounts of notes, potentially. It could be just an open octave, or it could be an octave with some notes filled in. So, where do I want to start with this? Well, let's start with this 4-note type A-B voicing in the left hand. This was the subject of last week's video. But the basic idea is that you're going to have the 3 and the 7th, plus 4 minor chords, 5th and 9th. And so this could either be here or here for minor chords. So for D minor 7, we might have 3, 5, 7, 9, or 7, 3, 7, 9, 3, 5. And then for major and dominant, very similar, except we're going to replace the 5th with the 13th. So 3, 13, 7, 9, or 7, 9, 3, 13. So if we're doing, let's just use a D7, D as in dog 7. There's dominant. There's major, or dominant, and then there's major. I'm sorry for the enharmonics. It's terrible enharmonics. Should be a C sharp, not a D flat. Like I said, if you want this in more detail, look at last week's lecture. So now if we go to what a difference a day makes, I've written out, I actually did some work ahead of time, you guys, believe it or not. I've written out those left-hand voicings. And now I made kind of a few really intentional decisions here, and I want to walk you through them, which is that right here for E flat major 7, I used the 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 9th. So I made it into an E flat 6. Why? I didn't want to double the melody note, which is the major 7th. So it's just going to be a little more colorful versus, right? So what I wrote with the 6 really complements that melody well, versus if I use the 7th, it's just repeating more notes. Same thing with the C7 sharp 9. It's a sharp 9 chord because the sharp 9 is in the melody, and so I decided to use the flat 9 in the voicing, so I'm not doubling a note. Okay. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to explain here. That's all pretty clear. Yeah, in this C minor chord, so this is a tonic minor chord, so I'm treating it as a C minor 6 or a C minor major 7. I thought it would be nice, since the melody is the 5th, I don't need to put it below, so I actually did 3, 6, major 7th, and then 9th. Wouldn't usually play that voicing, but with the 5th in the melody, it complements it so beautifully. So what I could do here is I can just play this melody in octaves, and then have the chords repeated in the left hand. Let me be clear, I didn't really mention this, maybe it's implied, maybe not. You're gonna repeat the left hand chord for every single melody note. This is what we call a locked hands style, where the 2 hands are playing at the same time. Okay, so so I'm gonna do it with just an open octave now. I'll let you watch. I probably started too high on those octaves. Okay, so it sounds pretty good with just the open octave. Now, I don't have a formula for how to add in extra notes. Oftentimes what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a triad that's going to complement things well. So for instance, for this very first melody note, I might just make this into an F triad. On top, and then for each of these notes on the B flat 7, I'm gonna add in A flat and C. So I'm writing the octave on top as well. And I guess I chose those because it forms a nice triad with the very first note, right? We got an E flat major triad. And it's the nice 7th and 9th for the entire measure. And then this D, pretty easy to make a G minor triad. And we could move to an F minor. So these are kind of all upper structures. And it's just easy hand positions for me to find relatively quickly. Now you notice there's inevitably going to be doubling here, right? We're doing 8 notes. And most of these chords have like 6 notes that work with them. So don't be afraid about doubling here. Another thing to not be afraid of, which is maybe interesting, is to have different and conflicting notes between the hands. Let me give you an example. Let's say I wanted to move to a B flat 7 flat 9 here. I could do it in both hands, but I could also just flat the 9th in the right hand. And look at, listen first. Okay, if I really stay on each of these and you listen really hard, you can hear that. If you're not listening really, really hard and I'm not staying on them, I don't think you'll ever notice it. And in fact, to me, it adds a little bit of nice color. let's keep going. I want to show you how to add more of these triads. So I might add an F triad. By the way, it's kind of funny. Like, this is one theory of how to do it, but these voicings are so hard to hear definitively that I can't, like, nobody's transcribed these sorts of things perfectly. So this is not the only way to do it, but as you hear, it sounds pretty good. So you might notice that once I find that first triad, if the chord's not changing, I'm trying to keep those inner notes. So I came up with F, and it should be A natural here, to form like it's an F triad, which is a nice upper extension, or upper structure, I should say, for G minor, and then I kept it. Here it happens to form a D minor triad for the next chord, but it doesn't have to. An A flat triad is perfect here. Why do I say it's perfect? Because it's one of the few things I can make that really fits in with a C7 chord. And it's got that sharp 9th and a flat 13th in it, which matches the left hand. Gonna do an A flat major triad here. What's going on with my pen? Who could say? If this isn't the most thrilling YouTube video you've ever watched, I'm disappointed. I don't know what to say. Here's another moment where you could consider mismatching between the two hands. So I'm going to use a really bland B flat triad. And so that's got an F natural in it, whereas my voicing has a G flat. See if you notice. You might hear a little bit of tension, but to me it's not ruining my day or my experience of this at all. Let's see, so I can then use a G minor triad here. So sometimes I'm putting these triads in root position, sometimes not. That'll just stay the same. And how about a C major triad? So that one's not in root position. And then a nice E flat major triad will be such a good upper structure. That's going to have the sharp 9th. It's going to have the flat 13th. And then a G major will be beautiful here. Keep going with that. B flat major triad. Here's another nice moment to mismatch. I'm going to put in a D flat major triad, so that's got an A flat and a D flat. I probably want to use the D flat in both of those chords. Otherwise, it's a little too dissonant, but you can see that the A flat and A are an interesting mismatch. So C minor triad here. I'm going to do another mismatch here. I have the natural 9th, but I'm going to use the flat 9th in the voicing. You know, the more different notes you have, the more color you're creating. But yeah, there are going to be doubling. So let's hear this now. This mess that I've written out here. I don't know if this helps. Now I did something kind of fun that I want to show you right here. So it's just a lot of E flat. stasis. So I did a little sidestep down into the D half diminished. So maybe I use like an E flat half diminished. And that totally is conflicting with the melody. But the context and the speed is everything. So listen. So if it goes by quick enough, that's okay. Now, could I also change the right hand if I wanted to? Sure, yeah, I can make it less dissonant. So that's the general idea of these shout chorus or block chords voicings. 4-note, left hand, type A, B voicing, octave on top, and you could fill it in with notes. And I suggest taking an upper structure triad, or it could be the triad of like the root position chord. But make a nice triad. Could be in root position, first inversion, second inversion. Could have a lot of alter tones. Could be more plain. This is actually covered in Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 2. I feel like I've been saying that in a lot of these videos. Since we're talking about shout chorus voicings, if you've watched all the way through, thank you. Say something about the word shout, or use the word shout in your response. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great one.